Hello there. In this part of the video series, I'm going to show you how to generate pagination links, or how the paginator generate pagination links. If you're new to object-oriented programming and classes, these are called properties of a class, and they're just like variables in procedural programming. And properties of a class can be accessed within any method inside a class using this keyword. So I've created a test function here which displays the last page, and I've set the last page to 5 for testing purposes. So I'm going to call this function and display the last page just to show you how just to show you that this works. Okay, I've created a test script here, so I'm gonna call this function within the script. Okay, I'm going to create a new instance of the paginator class, and since it's expecting some parameters, I'm gonna pass anything for now. It doesn't matter at this point. Call it like this, paginator. Okay, this should give us 5 since we've set the last page to 5. Okay, and if we change the last page to to 10, now this should give us 10. So yeah, that is how properties of a class are accessed within methods of a class, and yeah, you can access them this way and use them however you want to use them. So this right here is called a constructor. For those of you who are new to classes and objects and object-oriented programming, a constructor runs when a new instance of the class is created. For example, if I echo here this okay, let me say that. Not sure if I spelled that right. So the moment we create a new instance of this class, we should get now this line of code. Let me remove this because we no longer have it. So yeah, the constructor just ran. Okay, a constructor, we use a constructor to pass information that's needed by a class to the class. For example, this paginator class needs the total number of rows found and the per page variable, which is the number of results you want to display per page. It needs that information to calculate the last page of the pagination links. So when you create a new instance of this class and pass the rows found and the per page variable to the constructor, the per page property of our class will now hold whatever value is passed as a second parameter to our constructor, and the rows found property of our class will now hold whatever value is passed as the first parameter to our constructor. By the way, let me change this to 0. Oh, we don't know what it is, so it should be just an empty string. Okay, so we're going to initialize the total rows found. And the per page variable to the per page variable that is passed as a parameter. Okay, Now, if we define another function now and try to display the total rows found, it should give us whatever value is passed as parameter here. Okay, let me quickly test that. Okay, I'm gonna call this function here. And this should give us 4 because here we pass 4 as a parameter, as the total number of rows found. Okay, and if we change that to say 50, this should give us 50. Okay, so that is how a constructor works. We use a constructor to pass information that's needed by the class to the class. Let's initialize the last page and the current page. And we want to save that so that it gives us a whole number. Okay, just to check if we're still on the right track, let's test the last page. So I'm going to create a function to display the last page. Now the last page will be whatever number is passed here divided by whatever number is passed as a parameter here. Okay, display last page, and remember this is for testing purposes. I'm gonna remove this function. Okay, should public function. Now let's divide, let's say we have 50 results and want to display 10 results per page. We're expecting the last page to be 5 because 10 divided by 50 divided by 10 is 5. Let's test that and see. Okay, so the formula for calculating the last page works fine. All right, now we can remove this function. Now, forgot to initialize the last page and the request path. The request path is the path to your script. And okay, let me actually show you. So the request path is this, but you don't want to hard code it because if you hard code it, this pagination class will not work on other projects. Okay, so we're going to initialize the request path. Equal to and let's actually define a function to determine the request path for us, we're going to use a native PHP function within this function. Okay, so this is what our function method, sorry, I should say method, because functions inside a class are not called functions, they are called methods. Okay, so this is what our get request path method will look like. And now let's define a function to generate our pagination links. Actually, before we define before we have some code here, let's actually test this to see if we're still on the right path. So we're gonna call this function, gonna call it inside this function. Should actually echo it, and inside our test, so this gives us the path to our script. All right, and we don't want to hard code this, otherwise the paginator will not work on other projects. Before we get the pagination links, we have to generate the pagination links first. So I've removed the function that I've defined, which I named get pagination links. I'll work on it later. I have to show you how to generate the pagination links first before we actually get the pagination links. So yeah, the way to calculate pagination links is that we define a for loop and we set an iterator variable which starts at 1, and we say while the iterator variable is less than the last page, generate pagination links, and increment the iterator variable. So let's actually define that for loop. That's our iterator variable, starts at 1, and while it's less than the last page, want to increment it, and here we're going to generate the pagination links. So if you have 15 results and you want to display 5 results per page, the last page will be 3, because 15 divided by 3, 15 divided by 5 is 3. So if you have 15 results and you want to display 5 results per page, this loop will run 3 times. It will generate 3 links for you. It will give you 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yeah, and here we're going to generate the pagination links. Let me type that in. First thing we want to do is we want to get our request path. By the way, I could also use this variable here, but since I'm going to modify this later on, I just want to define a new variable here and just use it locally within this this method. Okay, and the request URL is the path to our script, like I said, and we don't want to hard code it. because the paginator will not work on other projects if we hard code it. And we're going to append this request URL to the href attribute of our pagination links. You'll see that just now. And next step is to check if the current page is active. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna set that to now. We're gonna say if the current page is equal to our iterator variable, set it as active. You'll see how this works just now. And the next thing is to actually generate the pagination links. And we're going to define a function for generating the pagination links. Pagination generate, let's name it generate. Now we're going to actually define a function for creating our HTML for the pagination links. Now this will give you list items. I should actually name it create HTML for pagination links, and it's going to take the page and the request URI, request URL, and the isActive variable, and I'll have to actually define it. And this is what our create HTML for pagination links method will look like. This gives you the pagination links, and what we're doing here is that we are appending all the variables that are passed as parameters here to our pagination links. If the current page is equal to our iterator variable, that page will be set as active, and the page is our iterator variable. The request URL is the path to our script. Okay, so yeah, that is how we generate pagination links. In the next part of this video series, I'm going to show you how to append query strings to our request URL, so that if we're searching for a movie here, we're able to keep track of what movie we're searching for in our pagination. So yeah, that is what we're going to do on the next part of this video, and we're almost done.